At 6:43 a.m., the HOA office door broke inward. Margaret Thornnewood screamed as windbreakers and agents descended onto the room, destroying a wall-mounted sign that said, "No solicitors" in bold lettering, and knocking over ornamental containers of fake roses. It was too late as she fought for her landline. "Ma'am, a federal warrant for mail obstruction, wire fraud, and impersonating a USPS liaison is being served to you." Agent Morrison gave an authoritative bark. Margaret let out an incredulous gasp. "This is Sunset Ridge Estates, though. Our community is platinum tier." His voice was firm as he answered, "No more. This is how I, Cameron Foster, overthrew the most infamous HOA president in the history of our state. It all began when I returned to Sunset Ridge Estates to care for my father, Robert, who was ill. He loved watching old westerns, worked as a RETIRED carpenter, and relied on twice-monthly pharmaceutical supplies to treat his heart problem. I largely stayed to myself, grilled burgers like a man with nothing to prove, mowing the yard on the weekends and repairing the old fence posts. It was peaceful and easy, just the way my dad and I liked it. Next up was HOA president and self-described community accountability expert, Margaret Thornnewood. She viewed me as an intrusion on her immaculately ordered realm. She would claim that it was too casual and too independent for her. She described the licensed contractor who erected Dad's wheelchair ramp as a visual detriment to the neighborhood's attractiveness. The ramp was required for Dad's mobility, painted to match the house, and constructed in accordance with code. Margaret, however, seemed unconcerned with any of that. Her only priorities were upholding what she dubbed the Sunset Ridge Standard and protecting the value of her valuable properties. When a UPS driver started stopping by our house frequently, things got out of hand. Margaret began recording each and every product that arrived after announcing this abnormal delivery traffic, like a suburban spy. She would record delivery times and package sizes while standing at her window with binoculars and a notebook. She first cited me for having an unauthorized ramp construction and said that any external property alterations required HOA clearance. It was a $150 fine. The citation for excessive driveway use followed, as it seemed that using 2 delivery vehicles in a single week amounted to commercial activity. An additional $200 fine. The last straw, however, was when Dad's heart medication failed to come for 4 days in a row on a Tuesday morning. This was no ordinary drug. His beta blockers were responsible for maintaining a steady heartbeat. He could end himself in the hospital if he missed even 1 dose. I immediately contacted the drugstore. They acknowledged that 3 days prior, they had sent it by certified mail. It was delivered to our community, according to a delivery confirmation I obtained from the post office. However, the package was intercepted for compliance inspection based on the HOA security logs Margaret so proudly kept. Margaret had changed the policy without giving enough notice. The HOA sorting facility, which was essentially a plastic storage container outside the community clubhouse, was now where all shipments were to be cleared. There is only a bin sitting in the Florida heat with no security or climate control. When I arrived at the clubhouse, I discovered Dad's box ripped open. The contents were obviously altered. It was covered with a big red sticker that said, "Return to sender, unverified resident." The drug was perhaps dangerous because it had been exposed to 90 heat for days. Dad's heart rate increased to 160 beats per minute that evening. Paramedics hurried him to the emergency room after I dialed 911, while the physicians stabilized his health. He stayed in the cardiac unit for 3 days. The doctor said we were fortunate that I got him there at the right time, and the bill totaled $32,000. I formally complained to the HOA board about how my father was almost killed by Margaret's unlawful mail interception. I received a $75 fine from her for using aggressive fonts in my correspondence. It seems that Times New Roman size 12 was too aggressive for her sensitive sensitivities. Margaret was unaware that I had contacts from my time working in the computer sector, in particular, Marcus Williams, my roommate from college, who is currently employed with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service in computer forensics. His tone became solemn when I explained what had transpired. "It is a federal offense to obstruct mail delivery, Cameron. She's most likely harming other people if she's doing this to you." The same week, Marcus began his investigation. They found out in a matter of days that Margaret had been using fictitious delivery hold forms to reroute dozens of deliveries. She had used a forged badge that she had purchased from an internet novelty store to create a false identity for herself as Patricia M. Thornnewood, USPS Community Liaison. According to the investigation, she had been inspecting shipments, assessing their contents, and, depending on her preferences, either authorizing their delivery or designating them for return, because she felt that too many prescriptions suggested bad living choices. Medications, especially those for senior citizens, were regularly postponed or returned. Several government warnings were generated by that fictitious USPS title. It is illegal to pose as mail workers. It is illegal to obstruct postal delivery. You could face severe federal charges if you combine that with interfering with medical deliveries. Marcus informed me that they had sufficient proof to pursue criminal charges. I called the FBI field office in silence and gave them all the paperwork I had collected. The raid was planned for Monday morning of the next week, when Margaret would be working on her weekly compliance reports in her office. A startling quantity of evidence was found during the raid. In her office, investigators discovered boxes of tampered packages, some of which were 2 years old. She had been levying penalties without the required board authority, according to HOA, fine ledgers with falsified signatures. The file, titled Non-Compliant Seniors Phase 2, was the most upsetting since it detailed intentions to make life so difficult for senior citizens that they would have to relocate. She had been methodically targeting homeowners over 70 with high fines and package delays, according to one document, in an effort to evict them and make room for younger, more visually pleasing families. She had made notes about things like Mrs. Kim's diabetes supplies being marked suspiciously monitored for vacancy, and Mr. Peterson's oxygen delivery being delayed due to a property acquisition possibility. Within hours following the raid, a large number of the HOA board members who had endured years of Margaret's strict supervision resigned, despite records demonstrating that they had blindly approved all of her rules. They maintained that they were unaware of her illicit acts. The neighborhood's reaction was swift and tremendous. People came out of their houses to express their gratitude and to tell me of Margaret's oppression. In his backyard grill, which was styled like an American flag, an elderly man named George set fire to his stack of HOA violation notices. Nobody failed to notice the irony. According to a woman called Sarah, Margaret postponed the delivery of her son's asthma inhaler because she thought the requirement for monthly refills was excessive. Jim, a different neighbor, reported that his wife's cancer prescriptions had been sent back to her 3 times after Margaret determined the parcels appeared dubious. At 7:30 a.m., just as the morning dog walkers were starting their rounds, Margaret was dragged out in handcuffs. Somehow, Channel 6 local news learned about the raid and had a video team set up in the ideal spot to record her being driven to the federal van. She continued to yell about property values and compliance requirements while wearing her pink bathrobe and bunny slippers. The charges were detailed by the federal prosecutor: conspiracy to obstruct postal operations, mail fraud, wire fraud, and impersonation of a federal employee. The evidence was strong, and each accusation held the possibility of jail time. They obtained testimonials from dozens of impacted neighbors, her fictitious badge orders from Etsy, and the bogus USPS form she had submitted. Margaret attempted to argue in court that she was safeguarding the community from dubious packages and maintaining mail purity. Margaret's Etsy order for a USPS liaison badge, together with her specific request for more official-looking stars, was approved by the judge, Patricia Hawkins, a no-sense woman. Margaret's HOA document, package protocol identifying suspicious prescription boxes, was then excerpted by the judge. Margaret had stated that in order to stop drug trafficking in our immaculate town, every delivery from a pharmacy was suspect by nature and needed to be carefully examined. The prosecutor provided proof that, in addition to the psychological suffering and possible death, Margaret had resulted in over $300,000 in medical costs as a result of her delayed prescriptions. 3 residents had almost passed away, and 17 had been admitted to the hospital as a result of medication delays. Residents of Sunset Ridge filled the courtroom as sentencing time rolled around. The judge spoke with calm firmness while maintaining a fixed gaze on Margaret. Ms. Thornnewood, in your quest for your perverted idea of the ideal neighborhood, you violated federal law, misused your position of trust, and put lives in danger. Not only were your acts against the law, but they were also morally repugnant. Margaret was given a life sentence prohibiting her from serving on any HOA board in the U.S. 500 hours of community service, particularly in post offices, 3 years in federal prison, and a $450,000 restitution order to the impacted residents. Margaret's face changed from pink to white to gray as the judge read the punishment, and she fell back in her chair with a whine that reverberated throughout the courtroom.